on to the next segment. So, we've got Sudan at our borders. I hope everybody in England is ready to take in a new influx of immigrants, because that is guaranteed what is about to happen. Because if there's a conflict that happens anywhere else in the world that isn't England, and there are dozens of safe countries between here and there, you can be guaranteed that the Tory party are going to be the first to try and fling open the floodgates and let who knows how many foreign people in, and for who knows how long. Because traditionally the idea of the refugee is the conflict goes on, they go to somewhere else where they can stay safe while the conflict is occurring, and then when the conflict ends, they can go back home. I do not know that this happens all that much in the UK. We do have quite a large amount of outward migration. I think about 600,000 was last year, but we did take in about 1.1 million people in total. So that still left us with over 500,000, over 500,000 people coming into the country last year that stayed here. And that's just in legal migration, and that's not including the boats as well. And then there's just the fact that we get all this refugee, illegal boat migration, where these people are supposedly coming in and claiming asylum from places like Albania, which don't have any wars or conflicts going on in the first place. They're just coming over for economic benefits. But Sudan, to be fair, right now, does have issues. It does have conflict that's just broken out in the past few weeks. The problem is, there are plenty of safe places between here and there, plenty of safe places that have much closer cultural ties to it, where they would probably fit in a lot better. But there is one problem between those places and where we are here, and why they would prefer to go here, which is we have more money to give them.
Yeah.
Which is basically the only reason why this ever happens, and why they only ever tend to come to England, because they just want to get even more money than they would. Although I did point out in a segment the other week that Scotland is going to be doing its minimum income guarantee, which is going to be a form of UBI in the next few years, which is going to make it very, very easy for people to come in and get a minimum income guarantee of about £25,500, which could make Scotland much more attractive to immigrants than England. So if that happens, perhaps they won't come over here to go live in England, which has had its demographics vastly changed over the past 30 or so years, and might instead go to Scotland, which is still about 96% Scottish. So even though the problem might just go to Scotland and Scotland gets worse, I live in England, damn it. I love England. Sorry, Scotland, but if your own leaders are going to sell you down the river...
The only good news is Scotland can't afford it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point as well.
So it won't happen.
We'll end up paying for it if it does.
Just like the Welsh are saying, they want to give, is it £1,500 to every immigrant, and all these things are great ideas. It's not going to happen. They can't afford it. The country relies on the southwest of England to fund the rest of the UK. It's not going to happen. But when we're looking at Sudan, we need... It's all complicated. Of course it's complicated, but we need to start looking at these areas, and we need to say to ourselves, are we making these areas better or worse by accepting immigration from those areas, as in refugees, asylum seekers or economic migrants? And the answer is, we're making these areas worse. We're turning them more into basket cases, because what happens is, let's look at Sudan. So anybody with any intelligence or any money in Sudan has already left the country, left years ago. So all we leave behind are the poor and the stupid. Then we have wars that come along because you've got the tribes fighting it, and these countries are all very tribal. Now, the countries were made up by Western Europe going, that's called Sudan, and they split tribes in half. So they're always fighting each other. And when we start saying we're gonna take some political refugees or asylum seekers, we then suck out the people from those countries who should be fixing their own countries. The young men of Sudan should be staying and fighting for a better country. But what we say to them is, abandon your country and come to the West. You'll have a worse life probably, but we'll give you some money. And then the Sudan and these countries just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it'll get to a stage where these countries have to be recolonized by Western countries, because the basket cases now. And if all those people in those countries want to live in the West, well, why doesn't the West just go to Sudan and say, this is Sudan 2.0. We're running the Sudan now.
I mean, I don't think that it'll be possible for Western countries to recolonize those places. Not after we've been destroyed as we have by third world immigration that's experienced. Maybe England of the 1980s would have been able to do something like that. Tongue
in cheek. It's never going to happen.
Obviously not going to happen.
And we never should do it, because part of the problem in the third world is the West keeps messing in it. We should say to Sudan, Sort yourselves out. If you have to have a civil war, then people die. Do you know what? People die. We had a civil war in the UK. That's how we got the democracy we've got. America, France, we've all had civil wars. What we say to these countries is stop fighting between yourselves and don't resolve any of your problems. Where sometimes it should be get on with it, sort yourselves out, and then maybe you can join the decent League of Nations.
Or instead of doing anything like that, we just go, okay, we'll just take in a load of refugees, which doesn't actually solve anything or make anything better over there. It just makes things worse over here, which is always the problem. And it's just always just for that short-term satisfaction of being able to say, oh, well, we saved people. Okay, but we've ruined this country in doing so. And I think the leaders of this country have much more of a duty to keep this country operating and keep this country somewhere where you, if you're English, you can live a good life than we do for people from foreign countries to be able to come over here and take benefits.
The right thing benefits both countries. The right thing benefits us, but it also benefits the Sudan by us not sucking out all their young men, sucking out their rich people and leaving them in a worse situation. We have to treat the people of Sudan as adults and say, you need to sort this out. And there will be wars and people, unfortunately, will be killed. But it happens in every country as it develops. And we just keep putting a lid on these problems, damp it down, damp it down, damp it down. But the problems are still there. The tribal conflicts are still there. It has to come out at some point, and only they can sort themselves out.
And on the subject of things that go wrong when we allow lots of third worlders to come into this country, we do have a recent video that Carl did that he put a lot of work into, which has proven to be quite popular on the website, where he did just a definitive timeline of the Grooming Gang controversies that went on in England that have been going on for decades at this point. So this is something that's available for premium users only. I know that some people have said that they would like it if it was made free, but the fact of the matter is that this is the kind of premium work that we do, that we put on the website for our subscribers. So if you are really interested in watching this, you'll need to sign up for the website, and that is not too difficult because it is only £5 per month for the bronze tier subscription, which gives you access to everything we do on here. So if you want to watch this and more work like it, you can go on there, sign up for a membership, and you'll have access to it and everything else. So for some context on what's been going on in Sudan, so this happened only a few days ago. It broke out on about the 15th. So it's broken out in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. Clashes are between the regular army and a paramilitary force were called the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. Sudan is a prominently Muslim, because it is North Africa, so what do you expect? It's predominantly Muslim. The country's official languages are Arabic and English. It was since a 2021 coup, Sudan has been run by a council of generals led by the two military men at the center of this dispute, which is General I'm going to get these names wrong, so bear with me, Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, and who is the head of the armed forces, effectively the president, and his deputy and the leader of the RSF, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, better known as Hemedti. I told you I'd get these names wrong. I'm rubbish with this. Hemedti. So what happened is shooting began. They had disagreements on how the country should be run. Apparently there were plans to include a 100,000 strong RSF in the army who would lead the new force. I assume the general, the president of the country, decided this would make it so that his power was weakened in the country and give more power to his deputy. So they ended up at war with one another. Shooting began on 15th April following days of tension as members of the RSF were redeployed around the country in a move that the army saw as a threat. It's disputed who fired the first shot, but honestly, when you're in the confusion of war, it doesn't really matter at this point who fired the first shot. All that matters on the ground is that this is what is happening. People are being caught up in it, and it's obviously terrible for the people of Sudan who are being caught up. So in the initial firing, it seems that more than 400 civilians have died, and that's according to the World Health Organization. Much of this conflict is also happening in urban areas, and civilians have become unwitting victims. According to this article, the Sudanese air forces have also mounted airstrikes in the capital, a city of more than 6 million people, which is likely to have led to civilian casualties. Ceasefires had been announced earlier on, but so that people could escape the conflict, but they weren't observed. I think they are being observed now, or at least at the moment, possibly still as we're talking right now. We've got a 72-hour ceasefire going on at the moment. But obviously, for the people involved in this conflict, for the people who are just caught in between these two rival military factions, like you said, is very tribal. You get two people after a coup who are both at the top of the totem pole, so to speak. They're vying to be able to get the majority of power so that one of them can be the top dog rather than having to share the power. And then it just ends up like this. They just end up fighting. It's a terrible thing that happens. But sadly, when you're talking about countries in Africa, North Africa, anywhere around that continent, you do often get problems like this.
This has been going on for millennia. The fights in Africa, you look at the Zulu Empire, and these tribes have been fighting each other for as long as they can remember. And some of these grievances go back a long way. And there's nothing we can do in the Sudan. The most we can do is send some relief to somewhere like Egypt, who they'll probably cross the border into Egypt, or some other countries know that. We can send some relief and money to them. That should be the extent of our involvement in this. That's all we should have done in Ukraine. So this isn't, I don't want black people coming to the UK. I didn't want the Ukrainians coming to the UK.
Yeah.
And last time I looked, they're white. So the UK is full. No more economic immigrants, no more asylum seekers, no more refugees.
I already pointed out in the first segment
we're full.
I already pointed out in the first segment that even back in 2007, 2010, estimates given from different data points of the amount of food that's being bought and the amount of sewage that we've got on the outflow suggests that even at that point, we already had, 77 to 80 million people in the country, which is even more than the most recent census took down. I think the most recent census was, 67 million people, something like that. So at this point, when we've had even more immigration and even more migrants coming over on the illegal boats and such, we probably have close to 100 million people in this country, most of whom shouldn't be here at this point, which is causing immense and clear strain to all of the infrastructure, all of the services that we provide. Do you think the NHS was built to be able to sustain a population of 100 million people? No, it was not. It was meant to sustain the population of England, which at the time was so much less than it is right now. But what we need to do, according to Suella Braverman, of course, is open up the floodgates to even more. She suggested that Sudan refugees, we need to accept thousands of them into the country as part of asylum. They're allowed to seek asylum as mass evacuations carried out in the war-stricken country. Now, there are British citizens in Sudan. And I think that we can, accept that if there are British citizens in Sudan, then yes, we should be saving them. If they are in danger. But when it comes to other refugees, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of other countries between here and there and elsewhere in the world that they could go to, which are going to be more culturally stable for them to be able to go to one place where they're not going to come over to England and disrupt our culture as well as their own culture. I
would argue they should be going nowhere. They should be staying in Sudan and sorting their own country out.
Well, this is the case for civilians, and I think you could make the argument. So women and children, for instance.
No, I'm not a misogynist, so I believe that women should be fighting for their own country. Women should be fighting to stop the murdering and the killing of their children and their parents. So this isn't just only the men. The women should be fighting as well. You can't have equality and then opt out when it doesn't fit you.
No, I don't think these countries are going to have equality.
No, they haven't. But we should stop encouraging people running away from their problems.
I think it's different when it is women and children. Like you said in the previous segment, the men are the ones always saying women and children first. I think if it's women and children who are in danger, they should be able to escape to nearby countries, neighbouring countries, preferably. If there's no conflict there, neighbouring countries should be able to take those people in who are vulnerable and most at risk. Whereas if it's going to be coming all the way across a continent, going from one continent in North Africa up into the Middle East and then through Europe all the way over here, no, that shouldn't be happening. We don't need these people coming over here. Them coming over here isn't going to be helping us other than potentially giving the leaders who decide on these things, without any democratic mandate, without getting the permission of anybody. They come over here so it makes them feel good and they can get good write-ups from The Guardian.
And then what happens next year when Nigeria implodes? And there's a civil war in Nigeria, and then it happens in Chad. And have you seen the state of South Africa? It's not a civil war in South Africa, they're just killing each other anyway.
Well, exactly.
So how many of these people do we take? So we have to say no at some point.
Yeah, we don't have a duty to take
No.
any of these
So
people in.
we should be
as far as I'm
saying no
concerned.
now.
And somebody pointed out when this was posted on Twitter and just said they just have nowhere else to go. And this is a comparative map. Obviously, it's roughly done up. But I saw a few people posting things like this. Okay, this is the size of the UK. The size of the entirety of the UK, including, and I know it's not part of the UK, but including the Republic of Ireland, is smaller than the entire landmass of Sudan. And they only have about 50 million people there.
Yeah.
Whereas we, potentially, estimates, could have up to 100 million people on our landmass. And that's just in England. That's not including the population of Scotland. That's not including the population of Wales. So it's absolutely ridiculous that we, just because of the fact that we are successful, and because some would say, oh, we deserve it because of the crimes of colonialism, the crimes of going over and civilizing uncivilized people. We deserve it because we stole from them. I mean, we also left a hell of a lot of infrastructure. We also improved literacy rates. We improved life expectancies over in places like India. But no, apparently this means that we have to take in potentially hundreds of thousands of people from Sudan. It's just ridiculous, and just on a practical level, impractical. You cannot expect us to be able to take all of these people in. And we have already been taking people over. We sent over a warship and air and sea evacuation the other day, and this seems to have been mainly for the British citizens that have been trapped in the country. So this is fine. As far as I'm concerned, if they're the British citizens, then okay, I can make the exception there. But if it's just the refugees, then they've got plenty of other places that they can go. But of course, we had protests in London already, because of course we did, because whenever anything goes on, you can be assured that there is an army of NGOs ready to print up flyers like this, organise people, and make it look like there's a groundswelling of popular support for this kind of action, when really there isn't. Because, Suella, isn't there somebody that you forgot to ask? That's right, the English people. There was this poll put up on Twitter yesterday from Political Polls, which, for a time being, they asked the question, should Britain set up a safe and legal route for asylum seekers in Sudan to seek refuge in the UK? For a time, this was going very much in the way that I'm sure the people who put these pollsters who put it up expected it to, which was the vast majority was saying yes. Everyone's, of course we can. You had all of the bleeding heart Ukraine, European Union flags in the comments going, of course we can. We had one person in the next one that I saw saying, well, I'm not a fascist. Of course I support refugees. And then people on our side of the aisle got wind of this, and everyone descended and took it very, very quickly from just a vast majority, like 80% saying yes, to all of a sudden, this one beat it out by a slim margin, by almost Brexit margins, 52% saying no, and then in the next one, we had this one saying, should Britain be welcoming or refusing people crossing the English Channel by small boats? This was a big no.
Yeah, refusing.
Refusing. And if we scroll down, let me see if I can see the tweets. No, keep going. Where is it? No, maybe it's on the other one, actually. Oh, wait, no, there it is. Go back. John Grisdale. I'm not a fascist. I welcome refugees. Big brain tape. And Count Dankula happily showed up in the bottom underneath this saying, fascism is when you stop the complete collapse of the money pot system. I am very smart. Good response there, Count, because honestly, it's so ridiculous to be able to just say fascism is when you don't accept in refugees.
Everything is fascist.
Yeah, anything that isn't just leftist progressivism is complete fascism. All the time, every time, in every place, the word has no meaning whatsoever now. And amusingly, while this is all going on, outlets like The Guardian are still screeching about not allowing burglars into this country on boats. So the UK is now set to potentially ignore European Court of Human Rights rulings on small boats after Sunak caves in to the Tory right. So the news here was that it came after the Home Office. Figures on Tuesday revealed that 5,049 people have arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel so far just this year. And that's just over the Channel crossings. About 113 people were detected in 3 boats on Monday, suggesting an average of about 38 people per boat. I do not believe that it is that low a figure, because I have seen images and videos of boats where it is possibly 100 people per boat, possibly even more than that. And you know that the people organising the crossings are making an absolute killing over it, and no matter how much The Guardian and other outlets would want me to feel bad because they post images of sad looking people in refugee war-torn countries, no, they shouldn't be entering the country that way. They have broken the law, They have broken the law, they have broken our borders by doing so. Backbench rebels have been pushing the Prime Minister to harden the illegal migration bill so that ministers can ignore interim rulings. One of the Strasbourg court's Rule 39 injections blocked the government's first attempt to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda last year. These so-called interim measures are typically used to suspend an expulsion or extradition, often used by asylum seekers who fear persecution if they are returned to their home country. So it's basically just a way of a foreign court showing up and going, no, you can't do that. No, you can't have sovereignty in your own country, despite the fact that that's what you're supposed to be able to do, despite the fact that that's what Brexit was supposed to be about.
The Tories could do this today if they wanted to.
Of course they could.
All they do is talk tough on this and achieve absolutely nothing. This is just another PR stunt that will never come to pass.
That is absolutely correct, which made it all the more entertaining. And I had to end on this because I thought it's Friday. We might as well end on a little bit of a laugh. I found this article from The Guardian coming up just today, why Rishi Sunak might be the most socially conservative Prime Minister of his generation. Okay, all right. Bit of a stretch. I mean, if he was, to be fair, it wouldn't be that difficult because all that would mean is you have to be just slightly to the left of Chairman Mao to be the most socially conservative Prime Minister of your generation. But let's see the argument that they bring here. I think you can probably guess where the argument is going to go. Do you want to give idea for 3 reasons why he's the most socially conservative and therefore fascist, therefore evil Prime Minister of his generation?
I'm not sure. The fact is rich.
No, actually, no. They do bring it up, but that's just a general lefty complaint about people.
Like socially conservative, he's married.
No.
I've got no idea.
Okay,
They've really thrown me this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So they bring up first that both of his predecessors, that's Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, were happy to play to the Tory gallery on culture wars, but Johnson as London mayor was a liberal on immigration and gay rights, which is not what people voted him in for, but that's what he was anyway. And Truss was a stalwart of the LGBTQ plus conservative events, and as a student campaigned on drug legislation. So obvious liberal saints. I'm sure The Guardian had nothing but good things to say about them at the time as it was going on, and weren't also painting them as the newest Hitler or Mussolini to appear in Parliament. Sunak is said to be personally driven, in particular on the Equality Act and trans rights. Here we go. He has taken a direct interest in Kemi Badenoch's drive to change the Equality Act to allow organisations to bar trans women from single-sex spaces and events, including hospital wards and sports.
This is beginning to sound quite racist to me.
Why does
Are they having a got him because he's brown?
I don't know.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Why does a man in a dress need to stay in a woman's hospital ward? That sounds like a recipe for disaster, if you ask me. It would redefine sex in the 2010 Equality Act. Oh no, our sacred Equality Act. It might as well be the Magna Carta to The Guardian, to specifically refer to legal protections for biological sex. It's not just trans rights, though. That's not the only reason. That's not the only thing. Hold your horses. Which become the unfortunate main battleground of the culture wars, where Sunak is demonstrating his deep social conservatism. He might as well, at this point, be Thomas Carlyle at this level. So to start off with, we're bringing back the Victorian prisons, we're bringing back whippings under Sunak. He has made stopping the boats one of his top 5 priorities and is set to make it virtually impossible for refugees to seek asylum in the UK, apart from through an extremely narrow set of country-specific routes. So, legal migration. He's in favour of legal but not illegal migration. Okay, nice one. And Sunak has been at the forefront of Braverman's drive on grooming gangs, and although seemingly unwilling to echo her language, he has never disavowed it. It is another one of the few pledges from his leadership campaign to have survived. So, if I can understand this article and what they're saying here, they're saying that he's the most socially conservative, the second coming of who knows who, the second coming of Thomas Carlyle, the second coming of the Victorian era, because he doesn't believe that men can be women. Okay. He doesn't want the country flooded through illegal immigration, only through legal immigration. And he also doesn't want grooming gangs raping natives.
If we ever got a proper conservative Prime Minister, these guys at Guardian would lose their minds.
They absolutely would. I would love to see it. They might just, if it happened, they might throw themselves in the Thames.
They're bringing back hanging.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've pointed out.
Corporal punishment.
I've pointed out a few times before there isn't a Guardian article talking about the last people who were hanged in the UK,
Yeah.
and they're trying to make you feel terrible for them. Oh, can you believe these two working class, impoverished, socially unequal men who just happened to murder a child are being hanged? These were the last men to ever be hanged. I'm like, they murdered a child. What are you talking about? Good. Dig them back up. Do it again.
Yeah, but don't forget, if depending on the age of the child, it could be classed under post abortion. So I think up to 5 years old in some places, you can murder your child. It's just an abortion.
Yes, but that's that then. I think, get ready for a new influx of immigration because we do have the most socially conservative prime minister in the world now.